Hey guys, and welcome to the second installment of our Road to the Triple Crown series, where we make our car racing debut in Formula C in the US, the equivalent of American Formula 4 in real life, driving the number 22 Horbner Automotive F4 car. A quick peek at the 3-race calendar tells us that we really need to maximize the points we get from each race if we want to win the championship, and book our ticket to compete for the World Formula 4 title, which will be in the next episode of this career mode. But in this episode, we make our car racing debut at the road course part of Indianapolis Motor Speedway, a track which I'm not as comfortable with as compared to Coda or Long Beach coming up, so much so that I decided to load a setup at the start of qualifying. I'll leave a link to the video in the description down below. Getting straight into my fastest lap of the session, the car felt as if it was on a knife edge. The rear end was way too lively, similar to the characteristics seen in the 2020 Red Bull Racing RB16. However, throughout the session, I started to understand that the car worked as if it had a blown diffuser. Basically, when you press the throttle through the corner, you're magically able to sustain more grip, a trait you'll notice when we get into the following races. But as you can see, I'm making a lot of micro adjustments to the steering of the car, hoping to find the rubbered-in line through this first complex of corners. However, my strongest section of the track by far is this chicane into a long back straight, where unlike the AI, I can take flat most of the time. However, coming up at the left-hand turn at the end of the straight, arguably my worst section of the track, the S's. As you can see, I'm trying to take them very carefully, trying not to lose grip, especially when touching the high curbs that can cause the whole car to suddenly lose grip. But we survive the ordeal and we exit onto a piece of track that brings us out to the section of the oval track, but quickly we brake and dart to the right into a right-left-right chicane, added to the layout after the farce that was 2005 US Grand Prix. The final right-hand corner leads us onto the main straight on the oval portion of the track once again, where you want to carry as much speed as possible on exit and not drag out wide like I did in this lap. Speaking of this lap, I qualified last on debut. Great start to the campaign, but in any case, we need to finish in the top 10 if we want to get some points on the board, and in the top 5 if we want to gun for that title. And for either of them, we're going to need a lightning start. And the lights are out and we're underway for our debut race here at Indianapolis. We get the start we were hoping for, so much so that we made contact with the guy in front of us while trying to avoid running into the back of him by going to the center of the track. And into the later gears, we're just accelerating so much quicker than the AI. We get to P9 before the braking zone for turn 1, where I outbrake the AI so much so that I get up to P3 by running the guy on my right out wide onto the scary curbs. Again, I'm making micro adjustments to the steering so that I make the corner, but equally to avoid the curb on the inside. But we go through the chicane after so quickly that we make contact with the guy in front too heavily, so he spins out. Definitely not my finest moment, but nonetheless we're up into P2 from last on the grid, right behind our teammate, who was fighting for pole at the sharp end of the field in qualifying, so we can only hope to just consolidate P2. But on lap 3 we hit a bump in the road on the outside of the track, causing us to half spin onto the grass on the inside, allowing 2 of the guys behind to get in front. But in the end, we hold position for the rest of the race to come home a respectable P4 from last on the grid, meaning that after the first race, we're P4 in the championship. Now on to Circuit of the Americas, where we jump straight into my fastest lap of qualifying, which was very scuffy, as you can see, exiting turn 1 with a bootload of oversteer. The car felt really on edge throughout the session, as if the car was going to lose grip instantly if we made too many adjustments to the steering too quickly, making the next high-speed section of corners and S's the most scary thing since the high curbs at Indianapolis. Those high curbs are here as well. But as we get onto the second to last corner of Sector 1, a long right-hand turn, you'll notice that I try to maintain the slight amount of throttle throughout the corner to maintain consistent levels of grip. At the start of Sector 2, we rise to the top of the hill into a right-left chicane, which is the bane of my existence because I can feel like I can go faster through here, but every time I do, I either understeer or oversteer offline. We go flat through the kink over the crest of the hill and down towards the hairpin that leads us onto the back straight, the longest straight in the calendar. We muck up the exit, losing the rear end due to making contact with the curb on the inside and causing us to lose rear end traction on exit. The setup I'm using for this track is simply the setup I use at Indianapolis, just with a longer final drive and much lower front wing angle to bias the downforce ratio much more to the rear end. But as we get into the hard braking zone at the end of the straight, I trail brake slightly to get a little bit more rotation through the apex of the corner. Then we take the sprint to the next complex of corners at the start of Sector 3, You really want to straight line this section as much as possible. For the following braking zone, you want to trail brake this as much as possible. Don't push the braking ability of the car past its tire's grip, otherwise you can lock the wheels and suddenly spin out. Now onto the quadruple apex corner that Coda is known for. Similar in style to turn 8 at Istanbul Park, I've learned that you can take this almost flat with a lift through the middle of the corner, something that the AI aren't doing, as far as I can tell. And into the next corner on exit, you really don't want to run out wide onto the curb on exit like I did on this lap, because you compromise your run into the final corner, into which you should brake earlier than you think you should, because this corner is very prone to oversteer due to the underestimation of the sharpness of the corner. Overall though, this lap is not something worth writing home about, as we qualified P15 when all is said and done. A terrible job to say the least, because I really felt like we had the pace, but it's an improvement to the qualifying position of the last race, to say the least. But the lights are out and we're underway here in Austin, Texas, getting loads of wheel spin initially, but as we go up the gears and build the speed quicker than the AI, we avoid running into the back of our rivals by running on the inside right up against the pit wall. Braking later than the AI, we go through turn 1 and stick ourselves into P6. Approaching the SS section, I really don't want to run side by side with another car due to the erratic nature of both the AI and this car's grip, making me decide that my best bet to hold position is to straight line the first corner. We get a warning for doing so, but in reality we didn't really gain that much time on the AI, so it's taken away from us, and we use the momentum from the cut to our advantage to go right around the outside to get P5 for the start of sector 2. Into the braking zone for the chicane on the crest of the hill, I locked the rear tires, causing me to cut the curb and make slight contact with my teammate, but nothing as bad as the last race. We lose time to the guys ahead as a result of a bad exit from the chicane, but over the crest I was building so much speed that we began to size up a move onto my teammate, but think better of it since we're approaching the back straight, and making the move might have resulted in compromising my exit. Regardless, we get a pretty average exit onto the straight and begin to try and get in the toe of the guys in front. And into the braking zone at the end of the straight, we go for the move on our teammate and actually go through with it. Only thing is that our teammate noticed and took a wider line through the corner, carrying more speed than I did, so evaded my overtaking maneuver. However, into the double right hand corner section, I caught him mapping down his inside and stole P4 from him. Later that lap at the final corner, I stormed up the inside of P3 to get onto the podium, although I scuffed up my own exit. However, they were fighting so much that they invited me into the fight, and by lap 3 I was sizing up a move on the back straight for P2. Like last time, I opted against overtaking into the hairpin preceding the straight, but unlike last time, I was much closer to the guy in front and had a much better exit, allowing me to get P2 in a straight line, and I forced him out of P1 slipstream to allow me to get closer to P1 and get away from now P3. By the end of the straight, I got so close to the leader that I went down the inside for the lead of the race, and unlike last time, I made the move stick, so much so that I led the rest of the race to come home the winner from P15 on the grid. Haas Formula 1, give me a race seat. We also clocked the fastest lap of the race, allowing us to score the maximum points possible from this weekend and shooting us up into the lead of the championship. Carrying the momentum from last race, we move on to qualifying at Long Beach. We fast forward to our fastest lap of the session, and I decide to use the same exact setup from Coda here as well. Into the braking zone for turn 1, you want to get as much to the right as possible, usually braking on the pit lane exit at the 300-yard board, and turn in at 150 yards. I turned in too early on this lap, but otherwise the corner was okay. Going into the hairpin around the roundabout, you want to straight line your exit as much as possible, and as we approach the upcoming right-hander where you want to get as close to the wall on exit as you dare to get the widest possible line through the next right-hander, which you can really go out wide as much as you please, so you really want to focus on maintaining the speed through the corner. After getting the desired exit, you want to quickly swing to the right of the track to get ready for the entry of the next left corner, where you want to abuse the smoothness of the curb and keep the momentum through the corner with another very wide exit. Again, you want to quickly swing to the other side of the track to prepare for the next corner, which is a very tight section of the track, so you really want to slow down for this one. Into the final section of corners on the circuit, you really want to slow down more than you think you do for this relatively wide right-hand corner, because it induces understeer, especially if you run the car on the curb too much. Then right afterward, there's a long left-hander where you really want to be tight on the line. For into the final corner, you want to slow down the car a lot for the apex of the corner and take as much curb as possible and scramble for as much grip and acceleration as possible for a dash to the line. And carry the momentum we do as we take pole position here in Long Beach by less than 5/100th of a second. Wasting no time in jumping into the race, the lights are out and we're underway here at Long Beach. We get a good enough start that the guys behind can't catch me, although I got quite a lot of wheel spin on the start. This wasn't an action-packed race as we come home in the end to run a lights to flag finish here at Long Beach to run our first ever Grand Slam weekend of our career, taking pole, the fastest lap, and the race win to put 26 points on the board and ultimately dominate American F4, capping off the series with 65 championship points, 26 points ahead of second place to utterly dominate this championship and compete for the world title in the next episode. If you like this video, be sure to give this video a like. If you didn't, tell me why in the comment section down below, and if you want to see content like this, consider subscribing. I'll see you whenever I'll see you. Peace!